So first I'm going to cut off all these zip ties. I just actually put up all of this plastic, the shower curtain, this zebra colored shower curtain, and the green tablecloth. The other day we had a bad monsoon and it knocked everything down, which is why it's just gotten to the point where I have to tear it down and rebuild it. Mosquito larvae and algae will build up in the grow trays, so I hose them out and get it all broken up and sent down the bell siphon and into the main fish pond, and the fish will eat up all that stuff. They love it. All of these little angle iron pieces and supports, I have a hockey stick supporting this thing. I added one piece at a time. As this thing started to break down and sag in one place here or there, I would add a support, and before I knew it, the whole thing was basically just supports. If you took out the original structure, the supports itself would damn near hold it up. If you're going to do something like this, I recommend disconnecting all of your electrical stuff ahead of time. I'm not going to, because that's just how I do things, and I don't want to disconnect my pumps and foul up the water. Even though these shade tents aren't meant to withstand a lot of weather, this one has. You can tell how brittle the top is and all of that, but it's held. It's been through, I don't know, however many monsoons you get in a year, multiply that times 2 or 3. I don't know exactly how long we've had it out here, but it's lasted. It's had, you know, the Arizona sun beating down on it, sometimes 120 degrees for days, you know. So it's done its job. It's kept the pond cool in the summertime, and when we wrap it with plastic in the wintertime, it's kept it warm. I'm gonna pile up all this stuff that I'm taking down, because you never know what you might need later. Stuff like this angle iron, I always have a need for stuff like this. People are always asking me why I've got trash and junk, you know, stacked up in my garage and stuff, but I will use it. I've got stuff all over my house. I've built barn doors in my room and all sorts of things. Anything you do in Arizona is extreme, whether it's flying a drone, doing aquaponics, pretty much anything outside. If you even go for a jog in Arizona, it's extreme. Our weather here is so crazy. The heat here is just unforgiving. So it's done a number on this whole structure, and if I'm not careful, it'll kill my fish, it'll kill my plants, it'll kill everything. The heat here has to be dealt with. You've got to do everything in your power to keep your pond cool. You have to do shade, you know, a lot of moving water, things like that, so that you can manage the heat. I have a couple of plans for this thing coming up. One, I'll talk about while we're going through kind of this boring stuff, is I'm going to set up a 100-watt solar system to this. I'm going to run the entire thing off grid. Another thing I'm going to do is use this to feed my in-ground garden automatically. It's really important to keep this area as neat as possible. In my neighborhood, we have bulk pickup, so I'll take all this big stuff outside next week and it'll all get taken away. Things like the old concrete weights are trash. I know I'm a recycler and reuser, but things like that are just trash. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this prawn bucket still. I've got a few ideas of what I want to do. I'd actually like to put prawn back in it. I'm not sure how that's going to work. I don't know anything about raising prawns, so I'm going to have to do more research before I do that, and I hate wasting this space. So I'm going to try to find another use for this whole tabletop area. I've got about 4 feet from the filter to where I'm standing now. When I originally started growing things, I had a hydroponic system, and I used these 4-inch tubes to run an NTF system, I believe it's called, where the water just continuously runs past the roots, and it worked really, really well. I had a lot of success with that system, but I don't want to use any chemicals. I like to do this naturally, so I use aquaponics. In all honesty, I've never been real good as far as growing stuff in my aquaponics systems. I did real well when we had one inside the house, and we were able to grow a bunch of chilies and things like that. Outside, the best I've been able to do is a bunch of tomatoes, which were actually delicious. And some of the people in my house don't really care for tomatoes, but these were actually really delicious. And I put them in sandwiches for my family, and they really enjoyed them. So I'm hoping to do a lot better this time. One of the things I want to do is stick to berries as much as possible, because I really like berries, and for some reason I've had more success growing those. Watering a garden that's in the ground is a complete waste of water if you're not really, really careful about how you do it. Slow dripping is how you're supposed to water a garden, and it's difficult to do with pond water because it clogs up the little tips and things like that. So one of the projects I'm going to do, and we'll get all into it, is watering the garden with a minimum amount of water. I'm going to be growing in the wintertime as well, and I've got a whole system devised for how to keep everything warm, and I've got heaters and things that I run. It's actually a solar heater that I run up on my roof, and it's really an amazing contraption. You can run it on a little tiny pump because the water going up is counteracted by the water coming back down. So it's really interesting and a lot of fun, and we'll get all into that when it gets colder. You'll notice that I'm not attaching the bottom of the plastic to anything, and there's a couple reasons for that. There's so many ants over here, I don't know where they came from. They're biting me all over the place. One is that, and this is the most important one, sometimes it's better to be the grass and not the tree. And what I mean by that is when the wind's blowing real hard, if you're the tree, it's going to knock you down. If you're the grass, it'll just push you around for a while and then come back up. If it's attached to anything, it just makes the structure more vulnerable during a storm. Also, in a real bad storm, I'll take the plastic and strap it up high so that the wind can blow through. If the plants get beat up a little bit, then they get beat up, but the structure itself will survive better that way. It can survive a few storms. By picking the plastic up, you avoid it becoming a sail in the wind, and the wind will go through instead of hitting it. This big piece of plastic is about 20 feet by 10 feet, and I'm only holding it up about 8 feet or 7 feet, and the rest of it is hanging down, and that does a lot for me. First of all, in the summertime it blocks twice as much light because there's 2 pieces of plastic hanging there, and in the wintertime those 2 pieces of plastic form a pocket that gets warm in the sunshine and helps warm up all the plants and water and everything. This will actually be the 3rd year that we use this plastic. In the summertime it gets used for all sorts of stuff. On the side of it you can see big tire prints where my son and his friend used it to spray their rims. This plastic is way too thick to just push the zip tie through, so you got to poke it first with a screwdriver or a nail or something. When I put the bug zapper and lighting back in, I want to do it all real nice and neat. I'm going to zip tie everything up real good and make sure that it's all put together legit. I don't want to have any issues later. Today the weather's nice and it's easy to do this kind of stuff right. When it's cold or it's raining and there's an issue, generally it's better just to do things right the first time instead of having to come back and fix it later. The first power strip has 3 things connected to it. It's got the bug zapper, the pump, and the light with the bubbles on it. The second power strip also has a switch on it, and I'll attach the red light to that so that I can turn that on and off as I need to. I'm going to use zip ties to hold this all together so it doesn't blow or get knocked down. Once I get the concrete feet put on here, this thing will be pretty solid. And I want the power strips zip tied up in an area that won't get wet or have any issues with weather. Now I'll get this bug zapper put back in. I'm intentionally hanging it above the pond so that any mosquitoes that get shocked in there and fall down, fall into the pond and it'll get eaten. I hear it going off a lot, so I know a lot of the mosquitoes are falling in there, and I never see any of them in the water, so I know that they're being eaten, although I rarely see it happen. Okay, well that's it for this episode. Please like and subscribe. If you've got any questions or comments, please make sure you leave them down below. Make sure you check out our merch. That's how we get to fund our projects for you to enjoy. We just released a new hoodie for winter, and it was a really popular item right away. Thank you all very much. I attached the link down below. Also, if you're in the Phoenix area and you want to start doing aquaponics, let me know. I'll throw you a few fish and get you started.